Advesha sarva bhutanam Maitra karuna evacha Nirmamo nirahankaraha Samadukha sukha kshami.
Adveshta sarva bhutanam, one who hates no being. See, he is giving out 35 qualities of a Bhakta. The very first quality itself floors us completely. One who hates no being. It's like World Cup, first ball you're facing, Virendra Sehwag hits the ball for a 6. What happens? The stadium erupts, the whole nation erupts. Similarly, there are 35 qualities of a Bhakta, he says. First quality, one who hates no being. Immediately all of us are disqualified, gone. Because there's somebody or the other you hate. Maitra, friendly, the same thing in a positive way. Karuna, tender-hearted, compassionate. Nirmamaha, without mindness. Nirahankaraha, without ego. Sama dukkha sukha, equal to pleasure and pain. Kshami, forgiving. What a one. See, now you know what we're talking about. So the first quality, Adveshta Sarva Bhutana. Why does he put it in the negative? Because, Indians have a way of cheating. We are all expert cheaters. So if suppose he were to say one who loves all beings, all of us would rush in and say, yes, I qualify. I also love all beings. I love all beings except, and there is always some exception. So to make sure that we don't get into this, he puts it in the negative and one who hates no being. What an amazing thing. See, what you need to remember is, he's talking about a devotee of the Lord. He does not say one who loves me. Normally our concept is of a devotee is one who loves the Lord. He doesn't say that. He says one who does not hate any being. Not just human being, any living being. So if you say, I love all human beings and all creatures except cockroach, you're out. That this doesn't mean you must invite cockroaches to live with you in the house. But there's no reason to hate them. How much we're so full of hatred is something that, you don't realize. You need to look within and find out where there is hatred and how we operate on that hatred. There's a story of a lame man and a blind man. Together they become business partners and start a business. And like all business partners, somewhere down the line they start fighting and they hate each other. So both decide to go to God and that God will resolve the conflict. So they go to God and God calls them one by one to find out what is it that is bothering them. So he calls the lame fellow and he says, look, you forget about your fighting with the other fellow. I will give your legs back to you. You're lame. I'll give your legs back to you and you go back happy. Stop fighting with this other fellow. The lame fellow says, no God, I don't want my legs. What I want is you make that other fellow lame. He calls the blind, he gives up on this guy. He calls the blind man and he says, forget about your hatred and your bitterness with your business partner. I will give your eyes back to you. You've been blind for so many years. And you live a completely different life, new life. He doesn't want that. He says, no, I hate that fellow. Why? What I want you to do is, what will give me more happiness than getting my own eyes? You take away that fellow's eyes. And this is what we're doing. The whole world is there before us. We don't want it. We catch hold of one little fellow somewhere and most of our hatred and revenge and all is imaginary. Remember one thing, all the enemies in the world are imaginary. So if you want to get over enemies, all you have to do is make a slight shift in your mind. And a person who refuses, even when another person is making him suffer, he refuses to think ill of that person, he is a devotee of God. So, how do you achieve that is the question. How do you achieve no hatred? Find common chord. You know, in the poem called Sorab and Rustam, it's an amazing poem. It's a very long poem in English. And he speaks of Sorab, a great fighter in Iran. And in those days, instead of entire armies fighting and killing each other, they had come up with a practical solution. Each army would nominate one fighter, one warrior. And they would fight in single combat. Whichever fellow won means the other person had to die. That army won. It's a practical thing. Instead of thousands of people dying, there's only one person is dying. So Sorab had become an expert warrior, invincible. And when his wife was expecting a baby, he was so keen that he should have a son so that he could teach that son the art of fighting, so that the son could take over from him. But the wife was so fed up because, you know, every morning the husband goes to work, the wife has some kind of a confidence that he'll come back. But if the husband goes out every day to fight, she was in agony because she did not know whether he would come back alive or his corpse would come back. So she did not want her child also to follow in the same profession. So once when her husband was out on duty, she delivered a baby boy. But she sent word to her husband that it was a girl. And that fellow got so disgusted, he never went back home. He said, what can I teach a girl? The art of warfare. So, now if there are any feminists here, don't get up and rage, please. It's just a poem. But this boy had the father's genes. And even without the father's training, he became an expert warrior. And he decided to go out and seek his father. So he went challenging. He knew the only way of getting the father out of hiding was to challenge him to a fight. Eventually he succeeded. Rustam came out. And here was this drama on the stage of a great battle being fought between the father and the son, both of whom loved each other dearly but did not know that they were father and son. And so Sorab came up with all bitterness and looked at the young warrior. He knew his energies were going down. He knew he was getting old in life and his strength was not up to the mark. So he was frustrated. He looked at the young fellow, and the young man was not interested in fighting. Sorab, the son, was not interested in fighting. He was only interested in finding his father, Rustam. So every time he fought, he would ask, have you heard of Rustam, the great warrior? This time he's asking Rustam himself. Rustam says, have you come here to talk or have you come here to fight? If you've come here to fight, come on, let's fight. And so the fight began. And the father and son fighting. After all, the father was weaker than this because he was older. So he felt his energies sagging. And as his energies were sagging, he wanted to encourage himself, to buck himself up. So he says, come on, Rustam. The son heard the father's name, the name that was so beloved, so dear to him, and his shield dropped. When his shield dropped, the father killed him. And as he was bleeding to death, Sorab the son said, you stupid man, you are not the person who killed me, it is my father. You uttered my father's name. And Rustam got paralyzed. He said, what rubbish do you talk? Rustam, the great Rustam, had no son. Sorab says, who are you to tell me that Rustam had no son? I am the son. And he shows a mark on his shoulder. What do you call it? What? Tattoo. A tattoo on his shoulder, which was Rustam's trademark. Rustam saw that and fell to his knees weeping. You see, as Saurabh kept talking to him about his father Rustam, there was suspicion that maybe this bright young boy who's dying prematurely could be my son. Completely changed. Suspicion. And when he came to know that he killed his own son, he was about to kill himself when Saurabh said, "Don't do that, father, because my mother is waiting for one of us to come back at least." This is what happens. When you find a common chord, that father was so bitter and frustrated and wanted to kill him. His attitude changed completely. And the most important thing was, the enmity that he felt for this young soldier was imaginary. He really did not hate him. He really wasn't his enemy. He was his own son. Similarly, friends, when you look out, just as within the body you have common chord, you don't show any differences between your toe, little toe, and your eye. If your toe gets hurt, you take care of the toe with as much care and trouble as you would take care of your eye. You don't say that the eye is more valuable than the toe. Let the toe go. Forget toe, even a nail you take care of so nicely. Extend that. Within the members of the family, you feel a oneness even though there are differences. One child may be brilliant, the other child may be a little dull. One child may be loving, the other child may be a little selfish. But the mother sees the children as mine, and so doesn't show any differences. If you extend this oneness to your community, then within the community you see no differences. That's where most of us are stuck. I am Bengali and I'm not, I'm just saying. I am Bengali and you are Punjabi and somebody else is something else. Rise above that and see one nation wherever you go, whatever you do. If you are able to see Indians everywhere and they inspire you, what a wonderful state to be in. And the payoff is enormous, What is the payoff? If you love all Indians, if any Indian prospers, does well, anywhere in the world, you feel so thrilled as if the achievement was yours. But if you see differences as we do, if the brother does well, you get indigestion. What a terrible state to be in. You're not able to enjoy the triumphs of even your own brother. Extend that and include all human beings within the purview of your interest, and your happiness increases that much more. The last thing he's saying is, Adveshta sarva bhutanam, you accept all living beings as one, the whole universe as one. This is the Indian culture. The Indian culture says that the entire universe is one, is mine. Then you're a true bhakta. That's how you achieve this capacity of no hatred. When you love the person, when you overcome the hatred, you're able to see the best qualities in the person and you operate out of your best, you contact the best in the other person, together you achieve the impossible. But where there is hatred, you see the worst in the person, you operate out of your worst, and there is chaos and confusion. So, what do we mean by this state of oneness? How do we achieve that universal oneness? When you identify with the body, you see maximum differences. Even within the family members, you're not able to see oneness. Identify with the mind, and there is relief. The sense of oneness expands to include your family members. Identify with the intellect, your own intellect, and you see oneness. You actually see this within the fraternity of musicians, for instance. A musician who's committed to music is able to identify with all musicians, is able to revel in other musicians doing well, performing well. Same thing with sports persons, same thing with scientists. Identify with Atman, within you see no differences whatsoever. So, the Ishavasya Upanishad says, one who sees himself in all beings and all beings in the self, what happens? The first thing that he overcomes is hatred. Na vijugupsate. And then the shoka goes, the sorrow goes. All of us go through sorrow because of this sense of separateness. So how do we achieve that oneness? When you show a mirror to a monkey, when you place a mirror before a monkey, what do you think the monkey sees? Another monkey, correct. And when it sees the other monkey, it feels threatened, it feels insecure and lashes out at the other monkey. What happens? Mirror breaks and it hurts itself. When I place a mirror before you, what do you see? See, the smile says it all. The thought of a mirror before you itself is so enchanting. That is why, in America, in the multi-storied buildings, when they had elevators, those times the elevators were slow. So it would take a couple of minutes, 5-6 minutes to reach the top floor. And Americans are impatient, so they would sit there getting impatient. So they hit upon a master idea. You know what they did? They put mirrors in the lifts, elevators. And the moment the mirror was in the elevator came down, people entered. You see what happens even here, wherever there's a mirror in a lift. People enter, they get paralyzed seeing themselves. And they're so busy admiring themselves and adjusting their hair and this, that and the other, that before they know it, they've reached the top floor. Frustration gone. Now what the Gita is saying is, look upon all creatures as reflections of yourself, just as you get great pleasure and pride in admiring yourself in a mirror. When you see other creatures, you should be able to instantly connect and see yourself in them. And then it gives you immense pleasure. So this is Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam. If you go home with one quality, you will say, one quality is difficult enough. Where am I going to learn 35 qualities? One quality is enough. But we'll move to the next. Second, Maitraha. Friendly, generally affectionate, loving, considerate. Disinterested love, not attachment, not this possessiveness, but generally friendly towards people. Now, I don't understand why people insist on being unfriendly. If you go for a morning walk and you see another walker, why can't you smile? Why do you see someone else, immediately turn away. You don't even want to look at other people. Generally friendly person. So then your mind is equanimous when you're friendly. Third quality, karuna, compassionate. Compassion for people who are less fortunate than yourself. Wherever you see people who are less fortunate and wherever possible, you must make an attempt to help them. But there will always be a gap. And where there is the gap, make up for it by just compassion. You don't need to do anything for people. You just need to feel for people. That also we're unable to do. You see a beggar on the street. You see a disadvantaged person. You see a handicapped person. It's not that you can go around helping everyone. But why can't you feel? That's what he's saying. Nirmamaha. No mindness because there is no otherness. The mindness comes when there is otherness. No attachment. The law of life is attach, you lose. Anything, anybody you get attached to, including money, you get attached to your money, watch out because you're going to lose it. Here there are only two things we know. We know a state of indifference where you don't care. And you know a state of attachment and possessiveness which is detrimental. We don't know of a third state, which is the sattvic state, which is a dispossessive love. It's an intense love, but it's a dispossessive. Difficult to understand. Fifth quality, nirahankara, without minus. Whatever you do, wherever you go, is pervaded by this sense of me all the time. Get rid of that minus, because that comes in the way of your success, that comes in the way of your happiness, that comes in the way of your spiritual growth. So, how does this ego function? Ego functions in three ways. When you're egoistic, you believe, I am the best. Nobody can equal me. Second, I alone am. That is how everybody drives on the roads of Delhi, as if I only exist. Nobody else exists. Third, I am the doer. Terrible, disgusting sense of I am the doer. You totally negate and disregard the contributions of others in that one action that you're performing. The greatest of people are the humblest of people. So by this you understand. More egoistic you are, you know where you stand in the hierarchy of greatness. Quality number 6, sama dukkha sukha. How do you achieve this even-mindedness? Go back to your own life. When you were a child, it made a world of difference whether you won some silly game that you were playing or lost. When you won, you were exulting. When you lost, you were down in the dumps. Now that you're an adult, sometimes you need to play a game with a child, maybe a niece, nephew, grandson, whoever. When you play the game with the child, there is a world of difference between you and the child. The child is affected by the ups and downs, by the wins and losses. You are sama dukkha sukha. Why? Because you've elevated yourself to a higher level.